Welcome back to the A Plus U podcast, brought to you by Affinity Plus Federal Credit Union. I'm your host, Danielle Johnson.
And I'm your co-host, Amber Shanley.
Amber and I are excited to be back in the studio, I think.
I am very excited to be in the studio, especially with our guests.
I know. Well, so we're here to discuss Financial Literacy Month, which is the month of April.
And why is that important, Danielle?
Oh, well, thank you for asking about my job, Amber. So at Affinity Plus, actually, I just did an interview with Dave today for a publication. Well, I didn't do the interview. He was interviewed. And he talked a lot about our organization and financial literacy.
Mm-hmm.
And he was discussing how important it is to our organization. He was talking about Junior Achievement and our partnership with them.
Mm-hmm.
He was talking about our youth banking app, which we can...
For users under 13.
Under 13, who, you know, parents can control it. Parents can assign chores. We can get into the details of that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's one of the things that we do to support financial literacy. And in general, actually, Dave said this today, and it kind of changed the way I thought about some things. He said, I prefer the term financial education because literacy makes someone sound like illiterate.
100%. And I think that's where financial literacy is such a touchy topic in general. And truly it is about increasing the knowledge of everyone, not just members at Affinity Plus.
Yeah. So I might slip up a few times today because that was the first time I had heard that. And I thought, I like that so much better.
Mm-hmm.
Education. We should all be learning something new every day.
Well, right. And I think with learning something new, it's giving the tools to help with what they're learning. So that way they do develop those strong financial habits that they can have. Like if they're using the youth banking app, for example, under 13, they can bring that into adulthood. Even as an adult, they can take what they've already learned and build on it to be to empower themselves to do something more with their money, whether it's saving for a trip or budgeting for something that they want to achieve in their home, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think, again, we can all be learning a little bit something new. And I think education never really stops when it comes to finances, unfortunately.
Oh, 100%. But I do think that's a good segue to our guest.
I do too.
Because our guest is a financial coach.
Well, let's introduce Anthony Kuefler from our Bemidji branch is in the studio with us. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
We're so happy you're here. I think that's a good introduction, Amber, because Anthony, tell us what a financial coach is.
So at Affinity Plus, our financial coaching team is a group of individuals that work with our members to develop our members' financial plan. We cover every facet of that plan, from budgeting, savings, credit discussions, even conversations into retirement planning, debt repayment, etc. To the entire kind of facet of someone's financial plan, taking into account their values, setting up specific and reachable goals, and being there along to kind of help them along the way, so that they have someone to kind of go to as a resource, correct what needs to be corrected, and just kind of support them throughout their entire journey. So
that's super exciting. So it sounds like you have a fun job.
I do. Super passionate about it. So I'm glad to be on the team finally, just this past year. So it's we're kind of launching now. So hopefully we'll be busy with members that are looking for our services. But it's a super fun thing to do.
So you said this is a new thing in the last year, and we're kind of launching this. So is there something special? Could I be a financial coach if I wanted to be?
I think absolutely. I think you talk to the powers that be at Affinity Plus if you care to join our team. But I think there's financial coaches all amongst the organization. We carry that distinction just because we took our certification test and whatnot. But at the end of the day, I view it more as just we're someone there to help coach, help be a resource and an advocate for our members, helping them achieve their financial goals. So,
and I think you touched on that really well, because it's not just the coaching crew that took the certification. Truly, any advisor at Affinity Plus can really help in that regard. But you all have some special tips and tricks that you're sharing internally, but also externally during the month of April, which is really exciting because sometimes I think we forget that the smallest thing can make the biggest difference in the long run.
Agreed. I think that's kind of a microcosm of kind of what we do, what a lot of our conversations with our members are focused on. A lot of the stuff I do now in the coaching role was things I've been doing for the last few years. So it hasn't really changed my day to day. It's something I'm super interested in and passionate about. So, but having specific members that you have developed more long-term commitments versus just someone coming into the branch, it's kind of more the direction that the coaching goes into. It's more sustained relationships with these members, with these families on more of a long-term approach.
And how rewarding.
It is. We've met some, I should say I have met some awesome people, been fortunate enough to, I would say develop lifelong relationships with some of the members I work with from all over the state, the country, all ages and different backgrounds. So you get to work with these members. They kind of let you into their life. So it's a privileged position to be in, but it's super humbling, super rewarding.
Well, I know when Amber and I were like planning this and we were talking about it and I was like, I just read on the Loop the other day, like a good story. And
did it involve cake?
It involved cake.
So let me stop you there. I brought you cake.
No, you didn't.
I did.
Did you seriously bring us cake?
I did.
Tony's forever known.
The caveat is I do get one of them. I got 3 for 2, so I took up the offer. Here, I'll hand these to you.
Oh, well, thank you.
Dibs the lemon, please. I'll take whatever's left. But.
Okay, well, we'll have a little treat later. Thank you. And we'll have to tell your story. We'll tell the story about why cake is so significant to you.
I knew you would bring it up, so that's why I brought it. I don't know that cake is necessarily important to me, but just because I figured we'd bring up the conversation about a member that I worked with and helped. Over the last 3 years, I've been working with a member at my local branch in Bemidji that went through probably one of the worst possible situations you could go through. She's a single mother, just to kind of paint a picture. 3 children. She fell victim to a scam involving social media that led to some fraudulent checks being deposited. And ultimately, at the end of the day, she was out about $15,000 in total. So we take that back just at the base level. $15,000 is a lot of money. I mean, $15 is a lot of money to someone. I think it's all relative, but $15,000 for any of us, I think we can kind of feel that pit in our stomach when we think about having that taken from you. Not only that, the emotional and mental toll that would take on you. So she happened to just pick me that day. I was the member advisor that was tasked with kind of helping her at that moment. Fortunately, we were able to do a loan to kind of recuperate the funds that were lost, but that didn't really clear up everything, right? Now she's got this debt she's paying. She's behind on her bills because we've lost, not only did she lose the fake funds, she lost some of her actual funds too. Like I said, it totaled about $15,000. She was facing potential delinquencies and stuff on her mortgage. It was just a really terrible situation. So we met every few weeks over really the last 3 years, developing a plan on how she can generate more income, how she can pay off these debts and get her budget kind of in order to fit this new payment and this new life that she kind of had to live, all while still being a single mother, working 3 jobs, trying to be just a normal everyday person. And this whole thing centered around her falling victim to something that she thought she was helping out someone like her. It was a single mom, gave her a story that she needed some checks deposited and money sent because of the life situation she was in. So there was really no monetary benefit for her to do this in the first place. I think
she was just being a really good person.
Yeah. So that was the tougher thing about the whole situation is it wasn't like she was trying to gain anything financially. It was, she was trying to help someone. And that speaks to this individual's character. So that got exploited. And again, I think most people, you could find a valid reason to say, well, I have nowhere to go from here, but that's the opposite of what she did. So obviously we had some work that we did with her budget, and kind of saying, this is our life now, we have to live with it. But she picked up a 3rd job. She really focused and harnessed in on her budget and where every dollar she had was going, still taking care of her children. And like I said, this was about 3 years ago, and the loan was, I think, 60 months. Again, about a little under $15,000 was the loan. And I got a call about a month and a half ago from her. I have her name saved on my phone, so I know it's her when she calls. And it was a Thursday, and she called me and told me, hey, I just want to let you know I paid off that loan. So so I was like immediately just frazzled and just had a shot of adrenaline because I knew, I'm like, that can't be right. You're 2.5 years ahead of pace. But sure enough, I pulled up the membership and it was paid. And she said it so like calm and just cool because you could just feel the confidence radiating off of her. And it was such a change from where we started. So I told her, all right, I promised you when this day would come when you paid it off, because you told me all this time, you'll never pay this thing off. You'll never do it. That we're going to have a party. I'm going to buy you a cake. We're going to celebrate this because it's something worth celebrating. We're going to take something terrible. We're going to turn it into something worth celebrating. And I told her, all right, next Friday, I need a week to get this ready, but next Friday, can you come to the branch? And she's like, yeah, I'll be there. I'm like, okay, what kind of cake do you like? And we kind of worked on that. Second I hung up, I shut my door. I'm like, I'm not doing any more work until we get this ordered. So called the local bakery, and it's so funny. It was a member that answered the call. I don't think I shared this on the Loop post, but I kind of filled her in on the details of what I could. And I just said, look, this is someone that had the worst possible thing happen to her, and we're going to celebrate. And I want it to be a cake that screams, it needs to be chocolate first and foremost. That's the only thing I care about. But it needs to be joy and positivity, and just, I want it to reflect the work that she put in. So I got the call on Friday to go pick up the cake, and then she came to our branch at the end of the day. We had streamers and noisemakers, and it was very loud. We're not going to do that much loudness. I think we scared all the members, but she was emotional. It was a happy tears, but she told me like no one's ever celebrated her like this. So super emotional. Just because I'd seen the last 3 years, been with her, every month, kind of chatting with her, and we even just talked just to share stuff about our families and stuff. So like I said, complete stranger, just someone I consider a friend. I'm so proud of her, but that's what the cake symbolized. I knew that you would kind of bring that up, but the key was just to celebrate those little victories and the big ones too. So
we read this story and it was like emotional, and now I'm hearing it and I'm emotional. We're going to have to get like tissues in here because Dave told a story when he was here and I was emotional, and now you're in here.
We will not have tissues in here. There is nothing.
We're going to be okay.
No tears.
No tears.
Here,
I'm just kidding.
No, but it is, I mean.
Happy tears are acceptable.
Happy tears.
Okay.
I mean, it is. It's well, and I think like that story, and there's just so many pieces to it. It's your relationship to the member, right? It's showing how passionate you are about the membership, about your role, about your relationship with her. And it's also, not to bring it back, but it's also a form of financial literacy. I mean, fraud happens and life events, good or bad, happen, and financial education. I caught myself.
Yes.
But it comes in so many different forms, and just think about like what she learned through that experience and how she will be able to carry that and teach her kids for a lifetime.
You were spot on. So she would be the first one to tell you that. Like the maturation of her, the day I met her to where we are now, like she could teach a course on the debt snowball calculator, one of the many tools that we use as financial coaches and member consultants at the branch and with Affinity Plus. She had no idea what that was when we first met. So her growth, both professionally and I guess emotionally, mentally, like she's never going to fall for another scam again. And she is so vocal on that stuff. When I asked her actually, and this was actually the most moving part for me, I asked her because we had such a big response to the story. I did call her and I asked, hey, you moved a lot of people, whether it's a mother that works at Affinity Plus or just any human being that's been through hardship. Your story resonates, I think, across so many different mediums and backgrounds. And I said, they want to feature this on maybe the website or social media. We didn't know the specifics, but basically, do we have permission?
Sure.
And I was thinking she would probably say no, just because she's not a showboat, anything like that. And the first thing she said is, absolutely, if I can save one person from doing this, then it's worth it. And it just speaks to who she is as a person. That is the woman I met the first day. This all started with her trying to be graceful and helping someone. And that part of her hasn't changed. And I think a lot of people that would kind of take that away. You've given everything and you got screwed over in the worst possible way. So you could make the argument, why would you try to help other people in the future? She doesn't view it that way. She's not a victim anymore. She's empowering herself. So if I had any part in that, I'm I sleep just fine, but I think most of it was the work that she did. If we had to help her along the way with some educational pieces, great, but she's still the one that did all the work. So,
well, and I think that's something that aligns well with everything that we do at Affinity Plus, whether it's the coaches or advisors, consultants, it doesn't really matter title.
Yeah.
It is just equipping members to do what they need to do, and we're here to just help facilitate it, providing that knowledge, providing some guidance, but also they have to do the work.
Yeah.
And that part doesn't change. And I think that's sometimes a challenge that is met with some financial education is it's a lot of work sometimes when you maybe don't want to, or maybe now's not the right time. And all of those things, I think everyone in the coaching space is really able to help balance out. It's like, okay, maybe not today, but in 3 months, we can do this. And here's ways to get there. It doesn't have to be like an immediate switch.
Yeah. Our coaches we all have different philosophies with how we do it. And the team is so great. They're so fun to work with and bounce ideas off. There's some objective truths that all of us will share. I think with financial education, there are hard objective truths. Like, yes, having debt is not ideal. It's better to be debt free. More money technically is better, but there's nuance required in all those things. And I think with all of us, we're all going to have different philosophies and biases towards different things. There's certain financial coaches that are so good at finding every possible way to pay off debt as fast as possible, where we might have other coaches that are going to be really, really strong at saving and retirement planning and being able to advocate on those resources. But at the end of the day, all of us are so focused on what that member's values are, what's important to them. And that's the driving force in everything that we do. It would be unfair to the member for us to impart our bias or our beliefs on what we think is valuable because it might not pertain to them. And yes, again, debt we can say as a blanket is bad, but that's kind of a lazy thing to say. There might be a reason for the debt and things, and for us to just throw that in ridicule, you're not going to get results from that because you're going to diminish their participation in that. And like you said, if they're not willing to put in the work, you're not really going to go anywhere. So we can't want it more than the member, so we have to keep their values at the forefront. And every coach that we have, that is the one constant with all of us. So,
well, and I even remember a story from back, goodness, this could be years from now, but it's like setting up a budget for someone, and they're like, they would go to Starbucks every day, $5 there. And it's like, that's their only thing that they do to treat themselves. And it's like, I'm not willing to give up Starbucks today, even though I know I could save $35 a week. That's my treat. And that's the only thing for me. And it's like, that's fine. Keep your Starbucks. Let's look at something else. And that's, I think, the biggest key in all of it is just helping people see bigger beyond just one particular piece. Like you said, maybe it is something they value, like Starbucks.
I have a member that's like that. Her drink is $10. It's a Trenta pink drink with the vanilla cold foam and the syrups and all these things. And I'm like, whoa, $10 drink. Is that with the tip? It's like, well, no, not always. It might be more. I'm like, okay. Ignore the expression on my face. I'm just getting shock over. If
I didn't even know you could order a $10
I didn't
drink.
either. I might have been an exaggeration because I've gone into the app and tried to create said drink. I can't get to $10. But again, like you said, if that's important to you, then it's important to me, and let's budget that in so that you're not stressed about that and you're not feeling guilty, I think is the biggest one.
Yes.
So that's funny. It's so true though, because it'd be easy for us to go in there and say, if you go there every day, spending $520 at Starbucks or whatever every week or whatever that math would be.
I hope not $520 a week.
If you went there, if you went there once a week and spent a $10 one, but it'd be easy to say, well, it'd be smarter to use that $520 to pay on debt. Okay, but you got to live your life. You got to do things you enjoy.
Exactly.
I don't think that's fair. So,
well, we're human.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're gonna sit at home every day and think about, gosh, I really wish that I could go to the movies. Like, that's no way to live your life. Or if you're going to sit at home and be like, gosh, I just would really love to be able to go to Starbucks like once in a while. I mean, we're human. And a lot of us anybody you work hard, and you should be able to enjoy life while working through whatever it is you're working through, whether that's finances or your actual day-to-day job or whatever that is. It's important to enjoy life too.
Yeah, I think there's I've had some members that changed my perspective on that exact thing, where I'm so anal about like focusing on retirement planning, and I'm going to be 34 this month, and my wife will get on me and say like, why are you so worried? Like, live a little. And she's spot on, because why am I stressed out? Like, I need to make it to retirement to even enjoy that. And one of the members said, well, I might not be rich in retirement income, but I'm rich in life experience. And I'm like, that's such a good way to think about it. Mm-hmm. He went on a random spontaneous trip to Malaysia like last month, and I'm like, okay. And at first I'm like, my gut reaction was, did you budget for it? But then when he started talking, I'm like, who cares about that for a moment? You're gaining life experience. You're doing things that are valuable. You're living your life, and as long as it's not sacrificing the rest of like the financial picture for yourself, then I agree. So you can't. I don't believe in being absolute either one direction. There needs to be balance with that.
Well, and I think to your point, ensuring values are represented, because we all have our own views on our budget and how we spend our money, but it's up to the member consultant, the coach, the advisor, whomever it may be working with that member to identify that and ensure it's represented within that, because otherwise I don't think I could go on a trip to Malaysia tomorrow, but I'd sure love to.
Yes.
But that's me as a person. That's not the person doing it. And I think that's the biggest key that you keep touching on, is just like ensure that members' values are represented. Otherwise, any budget of any kind isn't going to be meaningful or wanted to be worked.
Nope. It'd be easy for me to create a budget for everyone, and all of our budgets look the exact same, but that's not realistic. That's not how it's even supposed to be. So if you're someone at home that's budgeting and you're watching all of the, millions of videos on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube that are telling you, well, if you don't have 30% in this category, whatever, and you're stressing out about it, like, shut it off, because your budget it's not always going to match what everyone else's is, and it shouldn't. So there's, you still have to refine it and see where you can make adjustments, but people stress out too much that it's different from what they're being told or what they read online. Yours should be unique to you.
I think that's a key part too, because I know when you talk about saving for retirement, I'm like, future Amber, you're going to enjoy that and at that time. But present Amber is going to Starbucks.
Buy Starbucks stock. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Maybe. But we are not advisors.
That's not financial
stock
advice.
Area. Correct. Yep. Gotta cover that.
Okay, Anthony, you brought up a good point with the budget. And I feel like budget is a key pillar of financial education. So what are some other key pillars of financial education that we should kind of know about?
So I would frame it almost as budgeting being like the foundation of it all, because I think without that, you really can't successfully go through any of the other pillars. But after the budget is set, or that you have at least that drawn up and you're at a place where you're comfortable with analyzing it, revising it, etc., the next would be savings. And I think savings is kind of the easy one to segue to, because it's kind of the one concept that as children we understand, even though we might not associate with finances, but like saving or collecting, like I think of Pokemon cards and marbles or whatever I saved as a kid.
Or like your piggy bank.
Exactly, right? Yep. So we have the concept of it. We understand what it means literally, but when we apply it to finances, I think the importance of it kind of ties into everything else that we're doing. So you want to segue off into financial planning and retirement. So that's savings, investing, etc. Paying off debt. You're likely going to be saving to do that as well. So that is where I would start with a member as far as like benchmarks or kind of how that conversation would go. Again, we're going to tie in like their goals, their values, but as a baseline, generally, you're going to be aiming at either like $1,000 emergency fund, or I like to say like your highest deductible. So if it's a medical deductible, generally I know it's going to be larger than 1,000 almost always. But even on a smaller scale, if you don't have that, be like your auto insurance. So generally 500 to 1,000 is most common in the United States, but that way you're at least covered in the event of major incident involving something like that. The $1,000, the thing is, I think most of us know nowadays, not going to go as far as we'd like it to. So, but it's at least something, because what happens if we don't have anything saved and we have a life event, and that could be, again, anything. It could be you missed 2 or 3 days of work because you were sick.
Sure.
And those loss of wages if you don't have sick pay. It could be a death in a family, not only just the financial loss, but the mourning, the emotional, the spiritual effects that it has on it. Finances is kind of the one, I don't want to say it's the best of all 7 stages of wellness, but it's the one that I feel like has all the ripples everywhere, because if you're struggling financially, it's likely, you're not going to be able to feed yourself. So your physical wellness might be affected. Emotionally might be attached because you're in a down place because you don't have enough to pay bills or whatever it might be that you're trying to do. So getting a savings built so you have at least some sort of security is important. If you don't have anything and you get into a car accident or you do have a short paycheck this month, what's going to happen if you need bills to be paid? Likely, we're going to lean into our debt levers that we would pull. So credit card, maybe some loans, which aren't inherently bad, but if that's what we're using as a kind of a Band-Aid to cover either poor financial habits or just bad decisions, eventually we're going to get to a point where we've overextended ourselves and we can no longer pull that lever. And we're back to where we are right now, but now we have even higher risks and higher vulnerability, because if we're late on our house payment, are we running the risk of being unhoused or not having heat in our house or gas in our car, or food in our stomach? So that'd be like the next stage would be your savings goals and just getting that kind of at the forefront for the member.
So if we are building a house, because you said foundation is the budget, would savings be the walls?
Yeah, 100%. I think it ties into every kind of other piece of it. I mean, and it's in the budget too. So those kind of go hand in hand, but the budget's the roadmap for everything else that we're doing. So yeah, I think that's a good analogy.
Now we're on a road. I thought we were in a
No,
home.
we're on a house. Let's keep it on the house.
Pillar.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Yes, it is the blueprints for the house. How about that? No. You're right.
It's the road to the house.
Sure.
I'm like, paint me a picture. I want to see this visually.
Yeah, this is the metaphorical road in my head that only I can see.
So, okay, so now we have the budget and we have savings and emergency funds are kind of tied together. And then you talked about levers of debt.
Yeah.
And so would you say like that's like credit and debt management would be another pillar? I know you mentioned that just a moment ago, Danielle. How would you
okay,
frame
we're
up
building
credit?
a house, so
is
stick with
that the roof?
metaphor.
Yeah, I would say I would like to say, oh gosh, that's a good. Now you got me thinking. How about the roof of the house? And I'll explain my reasoning, and you can tell me if I'm right or wrong.
Love it.
So credit and debt, it'd be the roof over our head that we have that's protecting us. That's there. Credit being if we need to pull that lever, like we need access to money for an emergency, whether that is in a personal loan or we're using a credit card or we're buying a vehicle or something. Like we have that over our head. If we have good credit or at least well-established credit, it allows us to have capacity to pull that lever when needed. As far as debt management and handling that ties directly with your credit. So if you're poor at managing your debt, likely, it's not always the case, but oftentimes you'll see correlation with lower credit score, which is going to make it harder for you to pull that lever if you need to borrow money. Obviously, we do loans for people of all credit scores. It's at the end of the day just a number, but that number kind of dictates a lot. It's going to tell you what interest rate you're paying. So it's going to be potentially more expensive to borrow. It's going to tell us how you do previously with everything when you borrow money. So I don't like to use debt as a necessarily I don't like to refer to it as a tool, but it's a lever that we would pull, and we would use it when we need it. I don't think anytime we apply for credit, I like to say it needs to be intentional. We should never just be borrowing money to borrow. And if we don't have to borrow, like if we have savings, if we have a funded emergency fund, great, because now it's one less payment, one less obligation that we need to tie into. But managing that effectively, again, we go back to your budget. On your budget, you're going to have all your obligations and your debts. So it's all tying back to that.
I think maybe even saying like there's good credit as well. Good debt.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So maybe segue into
That's literally where I was trying to go.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think what I was going to say is that I think you'll hear some people say all debt is bad. I kind of talked about this earlier. Again, optimally, none of us have debt. We all are debt free. That'd be the ideal, optimal place. And I hope we all get there. And we will, right? We hope. But not all debt is just bad. Like if you have a mortgage, you're not going to generally say that it's bad debt. I think we're more thinking of higher interest debt, your credit card debt, et cetera. Even that, there might be a reason for it, and maybe you're using it for something. Now, if you have lingering, high interest credit card debt and it's something that is a crux, yeah, I would say that's a bad debt to have. But we look at your vehicles, yes, it'd be nice to pay cash for your car. Nowadays, it's tough to do that. So having a lower interest car loan because you have good credit, having your house, being a homeowner, like the American dream, I would consider those good debts. And yes, it should be a goal to pay them off, but we should be tackling those higher interest problem debts first.
So not all debt is bad.
Yeah, I think
I mean, overall.
Yeah,
kind of what you're saying.
I think it's tough. It's lazy to say that it's just bad. There's nuance required with that. But I think not all debt is created equal is the way I would rephrase that.
Okay.
So.
Yeah,
And I think
that.
it goes back to the values when you're setting the budget too. Like if someone is valuing taking out certain debt over others, I think it aligns well with if they feel that's what they want at that moment in time, or there was a need, like you said, with even credit card debt. Sometimes that is the option that was presented and they leveraged it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just never where you run into issue with debt, where I think you might have to be a little more strict on like the opinion of debt, is where it's a clear-cut case where debt is a tool that they're using to cover up bad fundamental decisions or lack of budget. Because if you're not budgeting, like I said, you're guessing at everything. So what you'll often see with that is you'll see lots of revolving debt because we don't have an idea of what we need to save for our everyday expenses, and we end up maybe relying on credit cards to cover those. Or maybe we, in the rare occurrence, you do have someone that just spends compulsively. I think that gets blown out of proportion. I don't see that as much with my daily thing where it's just someone that's spending and spending and spending. Usually there's a reason behind it. We're just not keeping track. And it's kind of amazing how quickly you can rack up that debt. Like it starts with just using a credit card for groceries because you're short that month. And next thing you know, you have something come up, you have a car bill at the auto shop, you have you miss some time from work, and next thing you know, you have a couple $1,000s in credit card debt. That's totally normal, and I'm not saying it's great to have, but that's why you need to be kind of doing all of these things and keeping track of all that.
And I kind of like your comment just then about how it's normal, right? Like I feel like there's such a stigma around debt or credit card debt or this or that, but it's normal for people to be kind of like working through that. I mean, wouldn't you say?
I think it's normal, and I think it goes in phases too, because it depends on what life stage they're at or what occurred in a moment.
Yeah, I'll be vulnerable and use a personal example. Wells Fargo gave me a credit card at 18 with no job or income, so that was cool at the time, and I viewed it as a $500 bonus for myself, right? So when you're at that age, and I was immature beyond belief financially, my parents didn't really talk about that. It wasn't a household thing. Luckily, like, they were there to help me when I needed it, but I just spent that like it was money in my account because I didn't understand how it worked, right? And do that over years and years, and you have no idea what you're doing. You have no idea what interest is. You don't understand what revolving debt is or what debt really is. I don't want to say that I would say it's immature and foolish of me, but that's a common thing. Does it make me a bad person or anything? No, that's a totally normal thing to experience. But that's why we're talking about educating yourself so you understand what the cost is for you to do these things. I do think too, like it is normal. I want to say the average American, like over the age of 18, it's like $7,000 to $10,000 on credit card debt right now. Like that is the average. That's wild to me. But it is a normal thing. Does it mean it's the best? No. But like Amber said, there's going to be reasons. There's going to be phases and things for that. So just don't beat yourself up over it. That's like the thing I have the biggest problem with is people are ashamed about that when they come to us. You kind of have to break those walls down because they're not going to want to open up about it and talk about what there might be underlying issues that they don't want to open up about because they're embarrassed, they're ashamed. So recognize that it's totally normal and just be okay with that.
I was going to say finances are a very emotional subject. And I think that's where at times it's easy to forget that, but it's buying a gift can be exciting and rewarding. And maybe that's something that brings you a lot of joy, but also it could also bring you burden too when you get the bill in the mail, if you're using a credit card, for example. So there's a lot of emotion tied to finances that sometimes I think is forgotten about.
I completely agree. I do want to go back though, because you kind of mentioned like being 18, and I think we teased it earlier, but the youth banking app. So what that is it's a tool that we have kind of given to our members for youth to start learning at an early age. So you're not 18 or, and spending $500 because you have $500 now, right?
Yeah, it is because unfortunately, still, it doesn't appear that in high school there's a lot of emphasis put on finances, which is kind of wild when you think about it. You have kids usually starting employment for the first time. They have income for the first time. Obviously, some people it's different, but generally speaking, and they're not being taught anything about how they're doing it. So the money coming in is just it means nothing to them to spend it, right? Not everyone, but for most of us,
Right.
that's what it was. And having the youth banking app, even if it's just to check your balance, getting accustomed to what that is, because they might not even understand. We see it when we open up minor memberships all the time and having those conversations with these members. You kind of get the deer in the headlight look a lot because you're talking about a debit card or savings account, and they don't really have a concept of what you're actually talking about. So allowing them to have exposure in a safe and a controlled platform, I think is phenomenal. But also when they turn 18, when you're off into the real world, as we call it, like being out there without any education or knowledge of understanding of how all this works, it's a risky spot to be in because then you end up paying, thousands of dollars over courses of years. So,
well, and I think what you touched on too is like if your parents didn't talk to you about finances, who does?
Yeah.
And you learn things like through your friends, through social media now, and how do you know it's reputable and how to decipher what you should trust and maybe what you shouldn't. And to your point, Danielle, the youth banking app provides that safe environment for younger individuals to learn, like under 13, but then even as they grow older and are teenage years and young adults, they have the ability to look at the tools within our online banking to learn more and understand and gain some of that financial knowledge that maybe their parents aren't comfortable talking to them about. It just depends on how they grew up.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's such a good point to bring up of like, if they're not learning it from us or their parents, where are they learning it from? And I mean, we know because we live it every day. There is an abundance of information out there for us at our fingertips, whether it's social media platforms, whether it's internet, whether it's TV, radio, whatever it might be. And there's a lot of bad information out there. So, it's not that we're on a high horse or anything, but it's just we see it every day with the things that we see online. It's a lot of illusions of grandeur, make $20,000 a day by doing this and get rich quick type stuff. And it's just when you're 18 and impressionable, I was drawn to that stuff as a kid. So obviously that's more exciting than talking about a budget when you don't know what that is, right? So
I don't know. Budgets sound really exciting.
I love the term budget, yes, but for an 18-year-old who doesn't really understand it, it's not going to jump off the page kind of like a a fun TikTok video might. So we'll work on that.
In due time, Danielle might be on TikTok. Who knows?
I love it.
Who knows, you guys? Who knows? Well, I think that's a great place to pause. So we are going to turn this into a two-part.
Did we finish our house though?
Oh, well, we'll finish it. We'll finish it in the next episode.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to make sure I had a proper picture of the home I was building.
Well, you have a foundation, you have walls, and you have a roof.
The back door.
That'd be the second property. No.
Well, we can finish our house in the next episode. So make sure that you come back because we are going to keep Tony on for a second episode here and can continue the conversation of financial education and specific, to the month of April as kind of that overall topic. So we'll catch you on the next episode of A Plus U. Affinity Plus is federally insured by the NCUA.